Now you want to get your straw, and with the straw you're going to take your sleeving and you're going to get this up and over that, and you're going to slide that on the straw. And it goes on pretty easy. It goes on a lot easier than if you're trying to pull it up over the cables. Now I've seen other people, there's a lot of different ways of doing this. Not saying this is the best way. For me, this is the easiest way. I used to use, when I first started sleeving, I used to try to sleeve it right over the cable, and work it and pull it and work it, and I got frustrated. So then I've tried to think of some way of doing it, and I've known people that have used screwdrivers, and putting the sleeving up on a screwdriver and then getting it started and then kind of pushing it. And then one night I was in bed, like thinking about the computer builds, and thought of a straw. Well, actually, I thought of some stainless tube. This is a little more resilient. It doesn't bend up and get old, but that's been around for a while. So anyway, you take your cables, you slide that over the cables, like so, and then you're just going to take your sleeving and just slide it right on. Pull the straw out. You're just going to take your sleeving and just slide it right on. Pull the straw out. And there you go. That's on there. Alright. So anyway, now we want to get this inside the sleeving there, or inside the shrink wrap. Alright, that side's in. What I like to do is pull the shrink wrap all the way over the top. Just find the end of it, so that way I know how close this is, and I'm going to pull this up as close as I can get it. Alright guys, now that we got the heat shrink on one side, we want to take another piece of heat shrink and put it on the other side. So just feed that up over your cables and then work it around the sleeving here. And what I try to do is, I use heat shrink that barely fits over the sleeving that I'm using. The reason for that is when I shrink this, I get a nice tight fit. And by doing that, there's a less chance of the sleeving coming out from underneath the heat shrink. And again, what I like to do is when I cut my sleeving is make sure it's long enough so when you put your heat shrink on it, as you can see here, let's take a look at this back. Okay, so the sleeving ends up right there. When I put the heat shrink over it, I'm going to get more than half coverage with the heat shrink. So when I heat that up, it's going to hold the sleeving on real tight. Now if you're having trouble getting the heat shrink up and over the sleeving, you can go with a larger piece of heat shrink. And in that case, if I do that, then I go ahead and I use some zip ties, and I put a zip tie over the sleeving, and then I put the heat shrink over that, and then we shrink it. Another time when I would use this, well, there's a couple of times. If I'm using this other type of sleeving that has a tendency to come frayed, I'll use zip ties to hold it down, keep that coming, coming frayed. Another time I would use it, let's say we've done a bunch of sleeving and we're down to the last piece, and it's just barely enough of the right or the proper size to cover our cables, and I'm not going to get more than half coverage with my heat shrink, and then in that case I would go ahead and use zip ties. But in this case I think we're going to be alright, so we won't be using zip ties for this. So anyway, what I do now is once I've got both of those on, is I go ahead and I want to go ahead and shrink down this first one so it holds it and I don't lose what I have. So anyway, what we normally do is we take our heat gun and we would heat that up, and that works really nice. But assuming I don't have a heat gun, we just want to use a lighter, and in this case, I have a Bic lighter. You can use any kind of lighter, but a cigarette lighter is just fine. Anyway, let me zoom in so you guys can see this. Alright, that looks good right there. Alright, so we want to take the lighter. You want to hold the cable away from the fan, and then we'll go ahead and shrink this. So let me get a little bit closer for you guys. Alright, so you want to get the the lighter fairly close to the heat shrink, but you don't want to get so close that you burn it. You may feel a little bit on your fingers, but sometimes that's what you need to do to to get the job done. So anyway, that looks pretty good right there. So we'll let that cool for a minute. Maybe we'll do a little bit more real close to the fan here. Alright, so that's good there. Alright, now on this other side, I'm going to zoom back out a little bit. Okay, now on this other side, before I heat shrink that down, what I'd like to do is pull that back a little bit, give me a little bit more exposure with the cables, and then I want to go ahead and put my connector back on. Oh shit, which way did it go on? Oh. Okay, we have a little diagram here, and if you guys remember, it was yellow, red, black. Yellow being on the left side when the connector is looking away from me. Alright? So what you want to do here is when you put these back in, the bend, let's get a little closer so you can see, the bend on the cable there, the end there, you want that looking up. And then on the back side of this, there's a little nub there. I'm not going to be able to show you that, but just trust me, there's a little nub there that actually catches inside one of these slots here, and that keeps it from coming in and out. So anyway, this looking up, yellow's on the left side, the bend of the cable is facing up, the nub's on the bottom, and you just slide that in, and then it catches. And as you can see, it won't come back out. So yellow, then we got red, the bend up, nub down, push that in. Then we take the black one, same thing. So anyway, all three of those are in. So now what I do is make sure my sleeving is nice and stretched, as far as down as it'll go, and then I'll take my shrink wrap, or my heat shrink, and I like to slide that up as close as I can get it to the connector. I'm kind of anal when it comes to this. You see that yellow, red, black there? I don't like that showing up inside my my case there. There's a lot of problems when you purchase power supplies. They'll bring the heat shrink up so far, and you'll see those cables, especially on the 24-pin connector. You'll have all those different colors, and it's really not that bad. But for me, I just don't like seeing that. What I do in that case is I'll take off a 24-pin connector, and then back to our little assortment of heat shrink here. I'll take the smallest one that they have, is 1/16, and I'll take each individual cable out of the 24-pin. And of course, I'll either make a diagram of that, or I'll do one at a time, and then I'll use this heat shrink to cover up the ends of that power, or that 24-pin connector, so that way they're all black now. All right, because when you put the heat shrink all the way up, you're not going to be able to get that far. The cable or the connector's that wide. You're going to be way back here. So anything that's exposed is all going to be black. And for me, it's more of a finished look, and that's what I like to do. So anyway, but in this case, we got three cables. It's pretty simple. We've got 3/16 heat shrink on there. We're going to slide this all the way up as close as we can get it, and then we're going to take our lighter and shrink this down. Alright, here we go. So anyway, when you're heating this, as I said, you don't want to get too close, and you want to rotate your cable so you heat it up evenly. And you'll see it shrinking down. In fact, you'll start seeing the indentations of the cables, indentations of the sleeving. And that looks pretty good right about there. Alright, so that's it, guys. Let me zoom all the way out. Alright, so that's the finished product there. So I hope you guys are going to be able to take this on.